Dream Girl. So if you're wondering who that was, that was my little part. But we are so excited that we have some of the cast with us tonight. We've got Elena, who played Beverly, Justin, who played Ollie, David, who played Lord Haversham, Levi, who is everything. He played Charles, is also our director and our writer, and also composed all the music, wrote all the lyrics to the songs. And then we have Ben, who played Dalton, and Tiffany, who played Clarice. And then Kate wasn't able to be here. She played Elsie, but I was able to ask her some questions previously, so I'm going to be able to add those a little bit from her in as well. So to get started, my first question is going to be to Levi. The first question is, how different did the final story look versus your very first draft?
Ooh, that's a good question. It was like a completely different story. So I started this project 1.5 years ago, and I wanted it to be kind of a haunted house story. I kind of pictured it being more of like a tragedy, like kind of a tragedy romance. And it went through so many different versions over the last 1.5 years. There were there were versions where Charles disappears and never comes back. There were versions where Constable was a villain and ruins everything in the end, and he's just the bad guy. So the characters have changed completely, but now it really does feel like the truest version of the story, I think. And it kind of feels like things happened the way they were supposed to. So I'm really happy with how it turned out, but it was being rewritten, and the cast can tell you this, it was being rewritten as we were rehearsing. Like Ollie slid in a couple of really good one-liners, and he kept calling me Mustache. And so we like added that kind of side joke. And then I ended up rewriting some of the Constable's parts and giving him 2 new songs. He never had a song before, so a lot has changed.
Great, thanks, Levi. So another question, I'm going to go to Elena. One of the questions that we got was, we've known that you have known about this project for a really long time. So how did you actually get involved, and how did you see the production come to life?
Yeah, come to life is a good way to say it, because back when I first heard about it, it was just a radio broadcast. So Levi and I worked at the same company over the summer, and I was wearing a Wicked t-shirt, so he figured it was safe to talk about musicals, and brought up the musical that he was working on, and I sang one of the songs that actually didn't make it into the production. It's kind of my greatest sadness, is that song didn't make it in. And then, yeah, I kept tabs on the project from there, and when Levi had bigger dreams and took it to live production, I ended up auditioning, and here I am. So it really has been, I've seen a lot of the progress from there, kind of what Levi talked about. Not quite from the beginning where Charles disappeared and never came back. I don't think I would have forgiven Levi if he left that version on. But yeah, it's been quite a process, and I think that this is a great end product.
Great, thank you. I want to go over to Justin and have a similar question. Justin, how did you get involved in the production, and what overall did you want your role to be?
So I actually originally auditioned as director, because Levi didn't know what role he wanted to take there. So he was contemplating stepping back after writing it and just letting, because I have a little bit more experience directing, so letting me take a crack at it. And then as director, I was looking through it and I was looking at all the parts, and I found just a one-line description of Ollie, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm him, and I'm gonna make you let me audition as an actor. And then I did, and luckily he and Ruthie, our stage manager, who's not here, agreed. So from there, I took more of a role as an actor. I just got to help a little bit here and there as an assistant director, which was a ton of fun. But um, but yeah, so really, Ollie called to me, and I called to Ollie, and we are one, and that's the most important thing.
That's awesome, Justin. I don't think anyone can imagine anyone playing Ollie other than you, and hearing mustache the way you say it.
Mustache.
Mustache. Yes. So, Levi, I want to direct a question back to you because many people may not know this, but so many of the actors played other hats, had other roles in this production. So, maybe you could take a minute to give a shout out to the people that did more than just play their role.
Yes, absolutely. I'd love to do that. So David, or Justin, in addition to being the assistant director and the Ollie, the legendary Ollie, he also did some vocal coaching because he's done some, I don't know if he actually, anyway, he knows music direction. So he was helping people with that side of things and kind of getting the most out of their voice, especially when with some of those more challenging songs. I tend to write really broad ranges with my music, and I just hope that people can hit those notes. So Justin helped people hit those notes. And then David was a surprise because he was already playing Haversham, one of the main characters. And when we ended up moving it to kind of more of a studio space, really just a gym, but ended up recording there, he became our technical director. And he took over all of that side of things, managing the stream, figuring out how the sound was going to work and the lighting and all that. And then Kate, who's not here on the call tonight, but played Elsie. She was our costume designer, which I hadn't even like thought about all of the costumes when we started rehearsing. She was like, what are the police officers going to wear when they take Elsie away? And I was like, oh, they're characters. They need clothes. I never even thought about that. Like, we can't just have them come on in their gym shorts or something. I don't know. So, and then Tiffany, who's on the call with Ben, that cute little couple you see there, their husband and wife, Dalton and Clarice in the play. And Tiffany came on as our props manager and helped out with locations earlier on when we were going to do on location. So, yeah, everybody did a side project of some kind. Like even Bo, who plays Perot, the guy who gets chained up to the tangerine booth, he actually helped cut a lot of the leather that became Haversham's wardrobe. And so a lot of that stuff is actually original costuming. It's actually stitched just for Haversham. So everybody did something in addition to their role.
Thanks for that, Levi. I'm going to switch over to a question that I asked Kate. Somebody had earlier asked about where all the costumes came from. So we did rent a couple of the dresses. So Beverly and Elsie's dresses were rented. Other than that, it was a lot of everyone pulling together what they had, what we could find. Some things were purchased. I know that Ollie and young Nathaniel shared pants. I think one of my favorite things is for young Nathaniel, so the costume that Iric wore, the jacket he wore is actually Tiffany's petticoat. And it just happened to work out perfectly. So it was a lot of the whole cast coming together to get the costuming done under the direction of Kate, who really thought about each and every character and was talking about what each character needed. And if you look at that jacket that Haversham wears, she actually made that. And that coat is brilliant. So big shout out to Kate for all that she did with costumes. And okay, so now
Rochelle, can I add one more?
Of course.
I forgot to do this when we did our cast interviews, our final interviews. I forgot to brag more about Rochelle, and she won't let me do it if I wait for her to ask. So another person who ended up pulling way more weight than we expected was Rochelle herself. We had her come on just because we loved her personality when she auditioned for one of the roles, and we loved her enthusiasm for the theater. So we were like, we don't really even have a place for her, but we need her. And we're so glad we did, because Ruthie, who's not on the call, was our stage manager and helped with a lot of the back end things, but there were certain things she just couldn't do without being there. So Rochelle ended up filling the other half of the stage manager responsibilities. And she became kind of the, let's see, I think we decided she wasn't the cast mom. She was more of the cast dad because she kept people on task. So she would really help me as a director to like make sure everybody was busy, everybody was doing something at every rehearsal. And without her, we couldn't have done the show. So just had to make a little plug.
Thank you, Levi. And if anyone's wondering, the cast mom was Elena. She was the one that made sure at rehearsals that we were being well fed. On our long rehearsals, she organized food and brought a sandwich platter and everything. So she's the cast mom and I'm the stern cast dad. Okay, so I want to switch over we haven't heard from Ben and Tiffany yet. I wanted to ask both of you how you guys got involved with the production.
So I actually met Levi while working on another show, and he had been pulled in to do some music stuff, and just in conversation, he was telling me about projects that he was doing, and I said, oh well, if you need an actor for a project, and he whipped out his business card, and then learning about auditions, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is a big thing. And so just auditioning, yeah, and so
and then I got in the show because I was listening to Ben audition and I heard the song and I was like, okay, this song is amazing. I have to be part of this show. Like, I'm gonna go crazy if I'm not part of the show. So I auditioned and yeah.
Awesome, thanks guys. Let's see, I want to start getting into us talking a little bit about our characters. I want to go to David first. So a couple of questions for you. How did you get the role of Lord Haversham? And somebody in the comments asked, how was it to play one of the oldest characters, yet being the youngest actor in the cast?
Hey, so and we talked about this in our first interview. So I was originally cast as Perot, but then they saw how good of an actor I was and they promoted me to Lord Haversham. That's definitely what happened. And so it was really fun because, as we mentioned earlier, it was a lot of the story written as we were going, especially the last half. And as we were going along, and I was like, man, I really am a lot like Lord Haversham, just real sarcastic, but soft heart, good guy. And so it was really fun to play him. And it was honestly a running joke that I was the youngest actor, but playing this character who's like 28. And even the younger version of me, young Nathaniel, the actor Iric, he's 2 years older than me, married, and I'd done all that. And I'm just like this little 20-year-old guy, little emphasis on that. And so it's been a lot of fun. It's definitely my favorite character that I've played so far. He has a lot of deeper elements that you see, especially in last episode where I have the duet with myself, me and Iric. Kind of that flashback is a really tender moment that kind of juxtaposes with Haversham's cocky, a lot of the constable scenes where I'm teasing and just having fun. So it's been a really good time.
hang on, I'm going to interject real fast. I just saw in the comments they said we can't hear David, just FYI.
And then they said they can't hear anyone.
I just realized they couldn't hear me. That's awkward. Well, it'll be on the recording, I think.
Okay. I can hear it through mine now. So David, that was such a great answer that we want to hear you.
So great. I'll recap it real quick. It's been a great time. I am Lord Haversham. There you go. Fun fact. Being the youngest is hilarious because I play the oldest character, and even the younger version of me, young Nathaniel, Iric, is 2 years older than me. And but it really helps that I'm 6'8" because I look older and my hair's thinning, so I guess I'm 28 now. There you go, the recapped answer. For the full answer, you got to buy the subscription and look at the interview after the fact. Use coupon code David for $5 off your purchase. You're muted, Rochelle.
Rochelle, I think you're muted still.
And I hit it twice. Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes.
So what I was just saying is we're also excited that Kate was actually able to join us. So Kate, I'm going to get right into asking you the first question.
Oh, good.
I want you to tell us about your process of developing Elsie and then how it was to learn that you also then had to create the witch in Elsie's body.
Oh, that was fun. Elsie was fun to develop. It was just kind of diving into who she was on the inside, which I could relate to a lot. She was very much just a woman at heart who wanted adventure and wanted to be loved and not be put. I think she was not wanting to live the life that she was supposed to live, but the life that she chose. So I could relate to that. But finding out that I was going to be playing a witch, which I actually learned in callbacks, that was one of the actual scenes that I did in callbacks, was the witch, and that was very hard. And it was funny because they're like, spoiler alert, you're going to become a villain. I was like, oh, cool. And it was hard. I've never done anything quite like that. So it's like, she's Elsie, but she's not. She's a witch. She's the villain. So it's like, it was a matter of trying to find the balance of still obviously it having the somewhat of the mannerisms as Elsie, but being completely different. So it was like developing a different voice, how I walked, talked, moved, it had to be very obvious the difference between Elsie and the witch. I think the funnest part was realizing just how creepy I could be, which I didn't feel I could be that creepy, but that was fun. It was just a lot of, oh, let's put a creepy shadow in. Kate, come on, get in the background, be the creepy shadow. So I've decided on my acting resume, I'm going to be putting creepy shadow on there. But yeah, so it was, I don't know, I felt like I could relate to Elsie a lot, so that came pretty natural. My family could attest, I was kind of the defiant daughter, so that came naturally.
Awesome, thanks, Kate. So sticking with the witch, I want to go to Elena and find out how you worked on creating your witch. And I also want to know, how long did you know that Beverly was going to become the witch at one point?
Wow, what a story. So when I auditioned, I haven't done acting for forever, since high school. And so I was auditioning for Beverly thinking, yes, she's the sweet little, just dedicated wife and just happy person. She's a straightforward character. And they made me read Elsie's line for the witch. And I'm just like, no, that's so outside of my comfort zone. And so it wasn't until like early rehearsals, actually, Tiffany had read the script ahead of me. And so she's like, yeah, Beverly's a witch. I'm like, and then I went home and read the script. I'm like, oh my gosh, Beverly's a witch. And then I read the next, part of the script that came through and found out that not only is Beverly in and of herself a witch, but she has this scene that you all just saw. And wow, I've grown, mostly of necessity. And but honestly, it's something that I've become kind of proud of, is that I was able to kind of rise to that occasion, even though it was not an occasion I thought I was signing up for.
Awesome.
That's how we get you, Elena. That's how we get you. If you knew in the beginning you were going to have to play a dual personality character, it would be we just like the bait and switch a lot. So You're going to
Well, you
play a
did it
really
well.
easy character, and then we later on tell you you're possessed by a demon.
That's a good strategy. So I want to go to Tiffany and ask her about her character. So we have Clarice, who's obviously a young child. In the description, Levi listed her as being about 8 years old. So Tiffany, I want to find out from you how it was to play such a young character and how you developed what Clarice was going to be for you.
Yeah, so first, yeah, when I initially was told that I was going to play an 8-year-old, I'm like, I'm 27 years old. I didn't tell anyone that, actually. This is the first time I'm saying that, but I was surprised. But I think I actually spent more time on this character, even though it had very little like screen time compared to others. I spent more on this character than I have on any other character, because I really had to delve into what being an 8-year-old looks like. And so I spent time with my 8-year-old niece, and we just spent some time talking, and it's like, what do you like doing? And she helped me remember what it was like when I was 8 years old, and we just spent like an hour talking. And the whole like scary face that I do in scene 5 was actually hers. Like I just like was, what would you do if I said make a scary face? And she's like, this, rah. And so that's what I did. And I became more of a 8-year-old than I thought I was going to. By the end, I was like, wow, this is not as hard as I thought it was going to be. It was really fun.
That's awesome. Thanks, Tiffany. Hey, I want to go with a question from the audience, which is also Ben's question. So I thought it'd be fun to ask this to the whole group. So if you have one, you can unmute. But what are some of the funny inside jokes from our cast?
Oh, Charles. Oh, Charles. I'll be the first to say it. We started to keep tally of how many times Beverly says, oh, Charles.
I'm still waiting for David to make the Oh Charles highlight reel.
I 100% support that.
I don't know. I'm trying to think. I think one of the funny ones was watching Justin develop his Ollie. That was pretty funny, and how natural it was. And he was always just slipping into Ollie in rehearsals, whether he was actually practicing or not.
I'm not joking. Me and Ollie are actually the same person, different accents. That's it. That's it.
I think one of my favorites was the running gags with the tangerines. Like first of all, they're not tangerines, they're cuties, like the Tangelos from the grocery store. Because where are you going to find tangerines this time of year? But the reason it became kind of a thing was because I brought a bag and someone else brought a bag, and we had tons of these Tangelos. And when we were rehearsing the scene, David actually stuck one with his knife and just bit into it with the peel on and everything.
Ugh.
And we all thought it was so funny that we did that every time we rehearsed it. And well, like several of the times we rehearsed it, and then in the live version he does the same thing, and we were just cracking up. And it was hard for us not to laugh next to the cameras, because we're like all manning a camera or a light or something, so we can't laugh. But every time David bit into that tangerine with the peel on it made me laugh. So
Yeah.
He ate it like peel and all.
yes, his vitamin C has got to be off the charts.
I didn't eat the whole, I just took one bite and then I started peeling it. But if you watch my face in that scene, you'll see me just start to like, I gotta keep chewing this. I can't spit it out. It's too late now.
And I think David ate almost all of those tangerines. Like they disappeared in a few days. And I think it was
I think he
almost
probably
exclusively
No, that was
David.
me. That was me.
Between Justin and doing the Oliphant in that scene and David, I think you guys ate well over 10 plus tangerines each.
I do remember one other running joke, and this is just partially Levi being the Lin-Manuel Miranda. Whenever there's like, oh yeah, we got to get on that lyrics guy. He needs to, step up his game. It's like, yeah, maybe we should take that up with the director. And it's all Levi, so it's just funny to throw that out there as if they're different.
Another fun inside joke was mustache, because not only
Mustache!
on Levi, but it was also used on Perot and on who all used that same mustache? Like I think
Eric used it when
Eric
he
did.
as
Eric did. I put it on during the Ollie-thon.
like that was used so often. And then the coat that Eric used was actually used by the constable too.
And
Well, it was
just
like Eric used it as Nathaniel and as a policeman, and it was used by the constables. Like,
Yeah.
Coat made its round.
and that mustache, it was like it's the exact same mustache. It's not like we're switching different mustaches. It's like I take it off and I hand it to Eric and he puts it on, and then so that's community theater on a budget.
I think I remember a funny moment was when I walked out with the contacts for the first time and totally freaked everybody out. And I remember just standing there and everybody would just glance at me and they'd be like, oh, don't look at Kate. She's like standing there just looking all freaky in my white contacts, and there'd be like fog and like crazy lighting, and I would just stand there looking spooky and totally. And I remember having to do, I don't remember what we were doing. We were rehearsing something. I remember having to do a scene with David where we were actually having to try and be like romantic. And he was just like, I can't look at you. I can't look at you. Because it was like creepy eyes and I'm trying to be romantic. But I couldn't take him out because we were about to shoot something. I forget. But it was so funny because he's like, I can't look at you.
You know, there's a comment that made me laugh. Aaron asked, how many times in rehearsal did Elena say, I'm not a witch, I'm your wife?
Not
I think that joke went around the whole cast a bunch.
I'm sure every single one of us said it at least twice at some point in the production.
Yeah. Well, with that, to go with the witch, I remember that was Elena's first time putting in contacts. So she and I were up in the bathroom and I was having to teach her how to stick something in your eyeball that does not seem to be natural, is to touch your eyeball. And I wear contacts every day. So I was like, okay, watch me. So she's just watching how I put them in. She became a pro really quickly, much better than I did when I was a teenager and started wearing contacts. So well done, Elena.
Okay, so going back to a couple of the other questions that I've seen here. One question that we have for Levi that came in earlier is, what does a typical day in the life of Levi look like? Writing scripts, writing songs, directing, and acting.
Ooh, that's another good one. That's where I have some funny stories as well that the cast doesn't know about, because it's all just like they happen just me by myself. Like, for instance, last night I was editing together the final episode we just watched, and I realized I hadn't recorded the song, like the actual version of the song, the Desperately Seeking a Sign. And I had worked on editing the video until 4 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't have the song, and I knew I'd have to get up and go to work first thing the next day. So I have roommates, so I can't just record at 4 o'clock in the morning. I got in my car and I figured a way to rig a microphone and my laptop, and I drove around the corner to this empty parking lot. And I kid you not, I recorded Desperately Seeking a Sign in the freezing cold in a car at 4 o'clock in the morning. And it sounds pretty good. So that's a day in the life. I love it though. It's so much fun. It's been my dream for a long time to produce something original, a musical or a stage play of some kind. And this has been my first really big music related like project. So I've loved doing it. It's been so fun to see everybody else come together and just they fill in the blanks where I can't with the things that I can't do. So
awesome, thank you. And Levi, for some reason it doesn't surprise me that that's what you were doing at 4 a.m. last night. Okay, let's see. I have a question for Justin. Somebody wanted to know, what was the name of the horse that we used? How did we get, how are we able to use a horse, and when did we film that scene?
That's a fun story.
A great story, right? So the horses are my sister's. That's my sister's and her neighbor's property. There's a little trail in between. Oh my gosh, what are their names? I know their names. the two horses they were trying to ride were Bo and Sunny. They have a third horse named Ty. And so just like, hey, can we come use your horses maybe, please? And so them being beautiful people, my sister and her friend Todd, who she lives with. So that's how that came to be. But so then we finally went up the Sunday before that episode was supposed to air, or when was it exactly?
It's like the first Sunday of the month of November, David. Was that right? Yeah, it was like November 4th or something like that.
It was November 8th.
It was, yeah.
I just had to
Our first
mark that up in
snowstorm.
film class.
Yeah, it just happened to be the one weekend in Utah that decided to have freak snowstorms all weekend long.
So that was it was fun. It was nice that we could hide inside a little bit. I don't think you guys went inside. I went inside and got warm. But those horses have not been ridden with dresses before, so that was a new experience for them. And even though Kate is an experienced rider, she had some mishaps that I still feel real bad about.
Oh, why don't you just tell them what happened? I'm obviously okay.
Well, so one horse, I think it was Sunny, just was like, "You're not cool enough. I'm not gonna let you ride me and do anything other than." He just would not cooperate. Bo is a little bit younger and less stubborn, but a little bit more excitable, and he bucked her off, which, as well as just wandered off. So most of the shots we got was him deciding where he wanted to go rather than Kate telling him. He's like, I just want to go inside. It's real cold. I just want to go where it's a little bit warmer. And so he kept just taking a beeline towards my sister's property, which there were fences in the way. So
barbed wire fences, I might add.
Yeah, wire fences. And they're real. I mean, you guys don't know this, but they're real good at getting through fences. They have to repair a fence at least like once a week. So that was that adventure. I'm glad I have a gracious family who accommodated, and I'm glad that Kate is okay.
Yeah, that was fun. It's like I got bucked off. I wasn't bucked off. I was thrown from him because when you ride horses, if you were really experienced, you should know the feel of the animal, because obviously it's like, yes, you're kind of in control of the horse, but this is a 1,200-pound horse between your legs. He's completely in control. You only can do so much. So I in my experience realized something was wrong. He was just not having it. So as he started to throw me, I slipped my feet out of the stirrups so that I wouldn't literally get rung around like a rag doll. And so I jumped / got thrown, and I landed flat on my back in a corset, I might add. I was wearing corsets and a very heavy Victorian dress. And I just remember, like, I got up, and your cousin's husband, I think, or something, was one way, David was coming up the other, and it was like, you okay? So, but it was fun. I mean, I still completely love horses. No hard feelings. I've been thrown several times, so it's all good.
I think that was probably the worst thing that happened as far as any type of injuries, unless anybody can think of anything else that happened.
What happened 5 minutes later?
You want to help me tell that one, David?
Oh yeah, that's a great.
So we were kind of shooting backwards. So what the whole scene was going to be was you're going to see Elsie like going walking into this basically family's home, stealing the saddle, then stealing the horse, and then you see her riding off. Did not happen like that at all. So we're shooting me. I was carrying the saddle across, the yard and getting that, and then we were like, let's get one of you climbing the fence. And David, in his brilliancy, was like, let's see if you can even do this in a Victorian dress and bustle first before I start rolling. And I put one leg over, got the other one, and my foot slipped, and I went hard down on that fence. The fence hit me right in the ribs hard, and I got the wind knocked out of me like none other, and I couldn't breathe. And I just hear David going, nope, we're not shooting that. It was good times. It was like trying to just corsets. Why did women wear corsets? Let's just ask that. Like, seriously. That whole experience was made worse the fact that I had to wear a corset and a very heavy dress in blizzard weather. But hey, it looked great on film. But I think that was the most serious injury. I think that pretty much freaked everyone out. They were all like, okay, no one get injured.
So I have another question that I want to direct to David. The question from Anika is, how many hours do you think it took to make the video? So I know we could go on and on about how long it took, but David, I want you to kind of walk everybody through what it was like behind the camera and what our process was and what you did.
So for the streaming, the initial startup was slow because I brought my computer, I had my software, and I was doing all the special effects behind the scenes for the first couple scenes because I'm good at picking that kind of stuff up. I had experience with the streaming software that we use. And I brought my webcam, so the wide angle shots that you get is actually a webcam that I brought. And then we got a connector that we could connect to a camera that Levi had. And so just kind of bringing stuff together. We had a Yeti mic like this one doing our audio. And it was... so I ran the behind the computer, switching cameras, making sure everything was good for the first 2 episodes. Yeah. But I'm also one of the lead roles. So I had to pass that off to Rochelle or whoever else could be behind the camera. And so it was quite the learning process, really. And you can see, I didn't even realize until I was going back and I was talking with Levi about editing some stuff. And he's like, it's crazy how we went from a tablecloth on a magneted to a wall to having projections and directional lighting and using a fog machine. I'm like, I completely forgot that the first episode, we just put a tablecloth on the wall and called that our set. I'm just like, I always thought, oh, we had the projections up the whole time. And even with that, the first couple episodes, we got feedback from you guys, the watchers, that it was super dark. So we had to figure out how we could get, instead of I forget what they're called, just like big lights, to directional like spotlights. And so we ended up putting spotlights on either side of the stage and shooting them this way. So it didn't quite hit the curtain, but it hit the people's faces. And we used barn door. It was a whole process and a lot of learning. And we'll have a behind the scenes video coming out soon. And if you subscribe, you can watch that behind the scenes video. If you use coupon code David, you get $5.
No. David.
But then for the recordings,
We plugged his code.
please, it's $1 off for every letter you type in. Anyway, so you get, but yeah, so Elena was actually one of the first people to suggest this, that we pre-record the last, was it 2 or 3 episodes, last 2 episodes, because with the COVID stuff in Utah, we didn't want to risk exposing each other after Thanksgiving, visiting family, stuff like that. And so we pre-recorded the last 4 scenes. And it was good because we could get like the best takes, but also took a lot more time because we couldn't just, it wasn't just one take. Like with the live stream, it's one take, it takes a half hour and we're good. And so just recording my song with Iric, with Young Nathaniel, our duet, which is just the best song, best scene in the show now. It took probably 4 hours to do the recording, the setup, and then recording the soundtrack. And so it was just a lot of time in that rehearsal. And so that last week of us pre-recording these episodes was, we didn't get out of the set until midnight or 1 in the morning. It was quite a time to be alive.
I think that you have to add into that the fact that those weren't as rehearsed either, because they were the later scenes. And so that's part of why it took longer, is we had to take the time to rehearse it and perform and shoot it.
Yep, because the blocking was completely different than what we had rehearsed. So there you go. It was a grand time.
Okay, so this is a question that can go out to any of the actors. How about we can share some of our experiences of what it is to stream something live, with funny mishaps, things that happen behind the scenes, things that they may not have seen or noticed. So I'd love to hear your guys' stories with that.
I'll just throw out there the first episode, about 5 minutes before the live stream was supposed to start, the camera went out, and we're just like, I guess. And so, but you have to be on and do the scene. And so it did come back on just in the nick of time. And I think it maybe went out again at the live stream. But as I was performing in the middle of Even Now, in the middle of the song, I kind of caught a worried look from Kate and David behind the camera. And I knew that something tech was going wrong, but I knew that I was still live stream performing. And so just, had to kind of really quick get back in the mode, and kind of focus more on the song again. And that, I think that happened probably to everyone to some degree at some point. Just, you're aware of what's happening behind the scenes, but you can't do anything because you're live performing.
Yeah, it's such a huge difference from live theater to live streaming, because I can see the techies with their worried faces, versus in theater, if something's going wrong, it's in a booth 150 feet away. But they're 5 feet away and they're struggling and they're racing back and forth and going, oh gosh, we have to be really quiet while we fix everything because the whole world just broke in half. And so just watching that as a performer, / also being on the other side of, be real quiet because the world is about to break in half and we have to duct tape it together. It's just a lot of fun, a lot of stress, but real great.
For me, what was interesting was finding, because I've done film and I've done live theater. And so in live theater, you've got a whole stage to work with and you kind of just have to stay within the light, right? Where on film, you still have a very small thing, but in film, it's very much walk here, cut, do this, cut. Where live theater, we had to block, but it was like finding, if you walk here, you're out of the shot. If you walk here, you're out of the shot. So it's like our stage, in a funny sense, kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller because it was like you only had so much. So that was interesting streaming, because it was like you have to be live, and there were times I remember behind the scenes being like, move over, we can't see you. Trying to get people back in the shot. It's like that 5 feet away, and so it's like you're still live streaming, you're like, okay, I'm gonna walk back into the shot now. Or so streaming was interesting because you're kind of trying to mix the two mediums, and I've never done anything like that, so it was interesting.
You mix the two mediums, you get the disadvantages of both.
Still very much live theater, and we're susceptible to technology. So, I've been in shows where things on live theater just go massively wrong, and you kind of just still, the show must go on. So it's like the live theater, remember when something crashed off stage and Tanner and I are like, scene still going. you know, who knows? Or, you know, there were times where like, oh, we're not even live. And so like, go back, start over, do it again.
Levi, do you want to explain what that crash was?
I don't know what you're talking about. I thought that episode was great. So yes, that crash was me. I was running the stream that day because David couldn't make it that night. He had a conflict, and he showed me how to do everything, but it just didn't go as planned. We had cameras freezing, and we didn't know how to unfreeze them. So it was just like somebody stuck in this mode, and no matter what we did, it still showed the same image. Anyway, that was one of the problems that night. Another one was that we set up our lighting too close to the actors, so it was actually in the foreground. You could see the soft boxes, which are these big photo studio lights. And I, during the stream, was like, I'm just going to stealthily move over and just pull this soft box back. But it was a little more precarious than I realized, and down it came. So it kind of came down on top of me and crashed, and Kate and Tanner like jump a little bit. And we just had to they kept acting. They picked it right back up, kept their lines going, and bless their hearts for doing it. If you go and watch it on the website now, it's been fixed. We actually went back and redid the scene and just recorded it. So you don't get to see me make that goof, but just imagine how bad it was, because it was pretty bad.
That is also the episode that was unofficially sponsored by So-Delicious. So that was also the camera being too far away, so it was zoomed too far out. It was in the middle. I think Ruthie, our stage manager, literally sent me a text saying, "You can see a straw on the table. It's so delicious." So yeah, that was a fun moment. Levi was actually the one who snuck around all of the tech to get to the table and slowly pulled the cup off of the table.
And you know what? I never missed a stream since, or a recording session, and everything was fine.
I think we threatened you otherwise, so you weren't allowed to.
Awesome. So I want to get into, we're going to wrap it up in just a few more minutes. I wanted to get to just some like final thoughts from each of the actors. So I'm going to ask, kind of jump around some different questions. I want to go to Ben first and ask you what you loved most about your character Dalton, and what was the favorite scene that you acted in?
I would say what I loved about my character Dalton is it's like he thinks he's the brain of the duos, and that's partially true. And so, I mean, just the quirkiness, and I think one of the biggest tips I got when I was getting some coaching from Ruthie is she said, don't be so concerned about like getting it right or like what people want to see. But act how you think it should be, or just try to be yourself, you know. And she gave me the tip of like, you know, John Wayne, Harrison Ford, they're themselves when they act. And so just really think just bringing that character to life was just such a great process. I mean, just really helped me grow as an actor. And I think my favorite scene to do, I think was either the scene 2 or the scene 4 with the curtain twitchers, or the I'm spacing on the song name. We Had a Family. And I mean, just what fun songs they were, and you get to do just fun dialogue and joking and just that Binky and the Brain type, you know, or other fun dynamics. So it was really cool. Yeah.
Thanks, Ben. Next, I want to go to Elena. I want to know if there's anything about your character Beverly that you personally relate to. And then what was your favorite scene that you did?
Beverly, personally relating to her. Well, I related to her a lot more before she got super complex. But like in the same way, I think that there's kind of a beauty of, in one way, respect, she absolutely is what meets the eye. She's, you know, this full of life, absolutely in love woman who's just playful and strong. And that's absolutely what meets the eye, but there's more to it additionally. And I think that I like the idea of that yes, I am exactly what you think I am, but there's probably more depth as well. So that's the answer to that one. And the favorite scene to do, I really do think my go-to answer is scene number 1. Because it's just such a great way to start the film, but I do have it's to start the story. But having grown and having had these experiences, I really appreciate the scene we did tonight, where Beverly is the witch, and she's also, the whole gamut of that, where she's this spiteful, possessed witch, and then struggling to defeat the witch, and then the Oh Charles moment, where it's, we have that reunion, and it's really, it was very powerful to watch and kind of fun. So I guess that's probably the scene I'm most proud of.
Thanks, Elena. Going forward, I want to ask, that was a weird noise. Okay, so I want to go to Tiffany and ask you, what was the most impactful part of the production for you, and what was your favorite scene that you were in?
Most impactful, I just have to wait for a second and wonder whether or not I want to say it, but we all know it. I'll go first for my favorite scene, and then I'll come back to that. So my favorite scene, I like all of them. But I think my favorite scene for Clarice is actually the epilogue. Even though it's just a few minutes, that's where Clarice is like, she's got her family, she's happy. It's just this moment of pure joy. And so in love of my character, it's so nice that she has a happy ever after, a happy ending. And so that's one of my favorite scenes. But really, all of the scenes are amazing. And I have to say my favorite song is the one that my brothers sing. Meaning David and Eirik sing, Clarice's brother played by 2 people. That song, it was just so impressive to see them pull it together so last minute, and it was beautiful, and that was just cool. Most impactful, the question was just what was most impactful overall. I would say what was most impactful overall was how amazing this cast is. We'll go that route. But for those that didn't know, like, my cousin passed away like right before I performed my scene, the week before, and then his funeral was the day before, and that was hard. And so the most impactful was having this amazing group of people. If you guys don't know these people, they are the best people in the entire world. And so that was most impactful, was being surrounded by these great people.
Thank you, Tiffany. We love you so much. Let's see. Let's go to Levi next. I want to ask you, what was the most rewarding part of this production, and what was your favorite scene that you did?
Ooh, yeah. This production really has been like a dream come true for me, just because I tend to write music and write stories kind of in a vacuum, and I don't really show many people. I have a couple of friends that I actually show them to, and my parents, who've also been very supportive and let us use their gym for this whole thing. I have to give a shout out to them. But one of the most rewarding things for me has been hearing people quote my lines and then like whistle my tunes at rehearsal. Like, they'll just be like going about doing something, and then they'll be like whistling "Charles, my love," and it's amazing to hear it come out of somebody else's voice, and then also to see really talented singers and actors perform stuff that I've written. It's been awesome, and just the different takes that they have, the different takes that they make on each song. They really make it their own, and they make the characters come to life. So.
And what was your favorite scene that you did?
I would probably echo Elena's, that scene 13, where she is the witch, is my favorite. It's really fun because of the irony of that scene. The whole time, Beverly and Charles are just so cute, and they're just the golden couple, and you think they can do no wrong. And then you see that get reversed where Beverly is possessed by this terrible evil spirit, and she's bitter and mean and malevolent. And then Charles almost gives up and almost loses hope. And that song is kind of about him trying to keep that hope even if she's gone. And so that scene is very fun to play and very rewarding.
Thanks, Levi. I'm going to answer one of the questions that I have for myself, which is what was the most impactful part of the production. So the song that you guys saw tonight that Levi sings to Beverly, you know, it's so amazing when you hear somebody write a song that, I mean, obviously it had a purpose for this musical, but this song touched me so deeply. Having dealt with grief in my own life, I have a daughter that I lost who was 1.5 years old when she died. And the first time Levi sang this song, because I hadn't heard it before, and he's got Beverly laying there and he sings this song, and it was like he had touched my soul. Like everything that I feel for grief was in this song, and I just cried. I snuck up into the bathroom and like threw water on my face. I'm like, I'm fine. But then when it came to actually pre-recording this, we did the song, and it touched me so much. I went into the garage and kind of just like hid away, and I'm like, okay, I'm calm. Came back, and Levi's like, oh, we got to do that scene again. We're going to record it again. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm running the camera here. That for me was one moment. That song will always stay with me. Like, it is such a beautiful moment, and it explains so much in such a beautiful way what grief is to someone. And for me, that was something that I never expected to get out of this production, was to have this song that spoke to me so much. Thanks, Elena. So let's go on to, let's see, I want to talk to Justin next. Justin, this is going to be a fun question. If you could play any other character in this production, which one would it be? And then what was your favorite scene that you did?
I was prepared to answer what you've been asking everyone else. Gosh, who do I want to play? I think I would make an excellent Beverly. I think, though, I did play Elsie in the Ollie-thon, and I think I really nailed her down. So, I think either of the women I would excel at. So I should probably just play both of them at the same time. I think that would be the best possible production. No, I really don't know who I'd like to play. It'd be interesting to flip the switch and play Dalton as Dalton. The problem is I just fit. Ollie is just so much my type, but I can't imagine being anybody else. Though I did get to read a few lines as Haversham for the audiobook, and so that was actually a lot of fun. Just playing off of that sarcasm as well. So I think if I actually have to nail it down, Haversham would probably be it, because he's the closest one to my personality. He's a little less goofy, a little more sarcastic, but both of us just genuinely care if you dig deep enough.
He's the best character, so
I mean, other than the main character Ollie, yeah, you're right. And then, okay, what was the second half? My favorite part?
Favorite scene that you were in?
Favorite scene. I think it's so tiny, but just the scene where we first encounter Beverly and we just think she's just a terrifying witch. It's such a short little scene. It's one of the few scenes without songs, but I think it's just so funny. Just learning that there are witches and that some of them are bad, and this person I don't know who she is, but she's scary, so she's probably a witch. It's very Ollie and Dalton. I think it epitomizes their relationship and who they are. And so I think that one's my favorite.
Thanks, Justin. Let's see. I want to go to Kate next and ask you, what did you learn from this production that you'll take with you to other productions? And then what was your favorite scene?
Well, like Justin, I was like mentally preparing my answer for the other questions I thought we were going to do. Okay. What will I take with me? Well, I don't know. Every show I've been in, I've learned something. I grow as an actor. But what I'll take with me is not to try and do a live streamed show during COVID. That just, not to try that again. But I will definitely take with me the experiences and skills I learned playing somebody so evil, and making that realistic, not just cheesy. So like I've not played a villain, I can say, a whole lot. So that was fun to get to do. I didn't quite realize just how creepy I could be, which I'm like, I'll take it as a compliment. The fact that everybody was always creeped out by me. So I'll take it as a compliment. And then my favorite scene, can I like do one for each personality I had to do? So I spend spend half the show as Elsie and half the show as a witch. My favorite scene as Elsie, I think, is the scene you get to meet her. That scene with Perot, who is played by my best friend, Bo. Shout out to Bo. That scene and with him and David was just so much fun. We had the best time doing that show, and it was hilarious because it was trying to figure out how to like cuff Perot, and it just really hilarious. And I wish there was like a bunch of behind the scenes shots of that, because we had like legit historic handcuffs, and we learned real fast that those puppies are a whole other story than modern handcuffs. But anyway, the whole scene was just funny because when you meet Elsie, she's very like, you kind of are like, what is this person? She's very like, oh yes, and then she becomes still very playful with Haversham when she meets her, and then you see her start to go down a little bit more, and she becomes very normal towards the end of the scene when you realize the real her, and she's very much in love. I think it's funny because in this scene as the witch, that's hard. I really, really loved the scene from earlier this week between David and I, where he realizes I'm the witch, and it's so good. And there's a part, and I did this scene for callbacks, and I remember like Levi and Justin can attest to this. I was put through the ringer as an actor during callbacks. They're like, okay, now I want you to try it in this voice, and then this voice, and then this. And there's a part, if you haven't seen it, there's a part where I basically in one paragraph have to do 3 different personalities all in one get-go, and I have to make it so believable. And it was so much fun to get to do. And I like first time I think David and I really did it. I was like, don't hold back. Like you can get like physical with me. Don't hold back. I can take it. And he's like, okay. First time we did it, he like shoves me up against the wall. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. But it was such a good, I just loved it. It was so dark, so dark. I loved getting to do that scene. That was just probably one of my favorite scenes to do as the witch to do. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate. So David, we're back. We are down to you. I want to ask you, what was the most rewarding part about being in this production? And then what was your favorite scene?
Most rewarding part. I definitely the most rewarding part is getting to get really close with all the people in the cast and crew that we spent almost every night together for over a month and got really close. And this is the most experienced cast I've worked with. I've done high school production, I've done small community things, but for me, it was, I grew a lot as an actor, and just being able to work with, I think working with Tanner as Constable especially was a lot of fun because we had a lot of banter back and forth. Like in the live stream, we hadn't done this before, but there's a scene where there's, right before we split up, right before the song Wide Eyes, he goes, "I can hold your hand if you'd like." And so I'm just like, it would be really funny if I just put out my hand for him to hold. And so just like throwing in just small stuff like that I wouldn't have done otherwise earlier in my acting, but it was a lot of fun. And then I did get some college credit for this through my film class. I had to get some set time, so all my behind the scenes stuff paid off. And so just the whole experience in front of the camera, behind the camera, operating it was a big growing and learning experience for me. And for a favorite scene, I have to agree with Kate that scene 10 is a very fun scene to act because Haversham is very sarcastic. And in the beginning of scene 10, when I'm with the constable, because scene 10 is a very diverse scene where you go from the constable and Haversham being funny and we're teasing each other. Oh, we're best friends already. And and then you go into the song and it's super intense. And then you come back and I get really serious with the witch. And it's a side of Haversham that you don't see, that he gets angry and he's violent and he pulls a knife on her. And it's a great scene. And I get to pretend to be attacked by a wolf off screen, which you get to hear my lovely yells and screams as I get slashed through the chest. So that was, yeah. And it was the last scene that we performed. For the whole thing, we'd already pre-recorded everything. That was the last scene that was performed in the show. So it was a good grand finale for us as actors.
Thanks, David. Okay, so I'm going to have one more question, a fun question for everyone to answer, and then I will have one final question for Levi. So to the whole cast, if they were going to make a blockbuster movie of this production, I want to know what Hollywood actor you would want to play your part.
We had this discussion already as actors, but I think I got mine figured out first.
Yeah, yours is obvious.
Yeah, Zachary Levi is going to play Nathaniel Barrymore, Lord Haversham, because he does great in She Loves Me as a sarcastic lover, but he's also kind of the rogue when he voices Flynn Rider in Tangled. And so I think he'd just be a perfect match for Lord Haversham, Nathaniel Barrymore, and we're both very good looking.
I think for me, we decided Anne Hathaway for me because she's really great at being feisty. And she could also pull off being the witch, being a villain, but she could also pull off being vulnerable and, very much that moments of weakness and sensitivity. So I think we decided on, I originally went for Emily Blunt, but then it was Anne Hathaway, so.
And partially because I chose Emily Blunt. Emily Blunt for Beverly Atherton. I think partially because then that also makes John Krasinski Charles. Sorry to steal your decision there, Levi, but that just, it seems right.
Levi, do you have a differing of opinion?
I'm literally searching young actors right now, trying to cheat. I had to admit that because I couldn't find the window. I was like, oh crap, no, I don't know where Zoom is. I couldn't find anybody, but I'm okay with John Krasinski. That I love A Quiet Place. So John Krasinski and Emily Blunt are a great duo. It's kind of funny because when I was initially writing the story, I put together like a little mock-up of Tom Holland, Spider-Man, with a little mustache. And I thought that was pretty cool. So he would be my other one if John's not available.
What about Tiffany and Ben?
Oh, go for it.
I have no idea. I think somebody joked about Shirley Temple at some point. I don't know.
I mean, I am like, I'm thinking of people. I cannot for the life of me put names on it, but I'm just gonna throw one out there. I think John Cusack, or I could do Ewan McGregor. I just think it'd be. I've seen him do pretty versatile stuff. So yeah.
Who's the guy that's in Inception?
Those are both good
Who's in
choices.
Inception that says Great Gatsby and stuff.
Oh, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
I mean, he could pull it off. I would be very interested to see what that would look like. So,
Can I say my dream cast for Dalton?
Yes.
David Hyde Pierce, who's Niles Crane on Frasier.
Interesting.
And then him teamed with a young Jason Alexander or Josh Gad. I want to watch that very, very badly.
I like that. Well, and if anyone's curious, because we did have this as a stage discussion, when we asked Tanner who would play him in the blockbuster, he looked at us all and said, "Well, me, of course." So Tanner's going to be a blockbuster actor, and he'll play himself in the film. And just because the Tangerine Girl is such an important part, my choice would be Julia Roberts, of course. Okay, so final question is to Levi. I saw a couple of these questions pop up in different places. Is this it for the Barrymore hauntings? And then second follow-up question to that is, what's next for Headphone Theater?
Perfect. Great questions. It's not over yet. So the Barrymore Hauntings is going to have a sequel that will actually be a prequel that tells all about the origins of the Moon Witch and the original Barrymore family, the portrait that they see in the hallway of the Barrymore, Lord John Barrymore, and the original Blakers who kind of betray the Barrymores, and the Knightleys. So Beverly's mom, who is kind of the original witch who sets up Dalton and Ollie to be protectors. You're going to get to see all that backstory, and then also why the Moon Witch betrays her sister Hildegard in the first place, and how the light magic gets divided from the dark. So a lot more like fantasy and a lot more lore. And the first episode is already written. So stay tuned for that. It'll probably be a while before we do it again, just because it's kind of crazy right now. But if it has to be an audiobook, then it will be that. If we can do it with a live cast, we'll be looking at something in probably the fall. And then, but yeah, definitely the Barrymore story has a lot more to it that I want to get into. And then for Headphone Theater, I really like the idea of doing kind of some version of a live actor production, maybe not live streaming again, because I think we all agree this has been super crazy. And if we're going to live stream something, maybe it'll be kind of like this, where we do a little cast intro of the episode and then we watch a pre-recorded episode. That would be so much less stress. So we might be doing something like that in the summer. But in the meantime, I'm playing around with some ideas for another audiobook, or maybe even doing something with puppets. So stay tuned. Headphone Theater is just going to continue to grow. And now that I've done it once, I'm just addicted. So I definitely have to keep doing it.
All right, thanks, Levi. So just in closing, we just want to say thank you so much to all of our fans and everyone who has supported us. We want to give a shout out to Levi's parents, who opened their house to us for rehearsal space. And then when COVID made things a lot more questionable, rehearsals. So we really want to say we're appreciative to them. We want to give a shout out to all of our families who were just supportive. I know I have husband and kids at home, husband who helped me, and I know just everyone in this cast has family and friends who supported us, who let us steal their bed sheets for sets, just little things like that. And then just finally, we would love your support. So if you haven't bought a subscription yet, just know there's a lot of content. Some of this behind the scenes stuff that we're talking about, we have scenes of us rehearsing different things. We have Levi singing some of the songs. He sang a version of Wide Eyes where he was the witch and the constable at the same time, which is amazing. And every single one of these songs is on there, recorded such high quality. So if you use promo code Rochelle, it has more letters than David, so you might get more. Maybe you should try it out. But in all honesty, we appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for tuning in. We love you guys.
All right, and the stream's over. There you go,
Awesome.
the final live stream.
Thanks, David, for setting that all up and getting it to work last minute.
That's my job. That's what I'm here for.
I know for me personally, it was so hard to leave Tuesday night because we hadn't wrapped everything, but we were still done. So I feel like this was a great send off for the whole cast to come together one more time. And, you know, this is it. This is our last moments together. Except for the cast party. We're coming back together for a cast party.